let no evil thing approach or enter in. That's exactly how my ex-girlfriend used to talk about me. But nevertheless, I'm John Renton with the retro review of The Sentinel from 1977. Written and directed by Michael Winner, not Michael Hot Dog. We have a wiener. He did Death Wish, not Death Wish 9. I wish I was dead. Oi. This also is based on a novel by Jeffrey. Jeffrey, calm down. Jeffrey, don't do that. Jeffrey, look at what you did, Jeffrey. And boy, if you guys know what that's from, I'm sorry, I just couldn't help it. Jeffrey, convicts. So, this stars a lot of people. A whole lot of people. Let's talk about the main characters and then let's dive into the goddamn cast. Firstly, we focus on Allison Parker. Christina Raines, my goodness, who wouldn't want to goddamn focus on her at that point? Whew! Good grief, what a beauty she was then. My goodness. So she plays an aspiring model that is doing very well for herself, and you could see why many would want her to model their products and model whatever, because look at her. Okay, sorry, I'll stop. So she is basically overcoming a stay in a hospital. She has a significant other, Michael Lerman, who is a lawyer, played by Chris Sarandon. And let's just say it's pretty obvious where this film's going from the very beginning. I'm just going to say that right now. This will be filled with spoilers after I basically get through the description of the plot. Michael wants her to stay with him, but she insists on getting her own apartment, getting back on her feet. She has a friend, Jennifer, and then it becomes very obvious that this particular apartment has a dark, evil secret. They must solve this mystery before their lives are history. The Sentinel Tales, woohoo. So this came out in 1977 and had a $3.7 million budget, which would be $19.2 million in today's money. Pretty goddamn sizable, in all honesty. 19.2 wouldn't be so sizable today, but 3.7 million in 1977, pretty good. They used that for... Well, they didn't use it for editing because there wasn't very good editing in this, and they certainly didn't want to have coherency, and after it draws you in with a few decent ideas, it just becomes an amalgamation of Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, The Omen, and a whole bunch of other, demonic movies, Human Centipede together, and then we have some body horror effects later on, and we just have a bunch of people doing weird shit and acting weird, and look, I'm going to be honest, the idea of this movie actually isn't all that original, but could have been executed well. Unfortunately, it's obvious where it's going, and it stumbles, it's on its way to get there. And yeah, I don't really necessarily understand why the fuck this movie was, made, because it wasn't very fucking good. At all. Like, really, at all. Christina Raines absolutely is gorgeous in this, and Chris Sarandon plays a good sleazy lawyer, and you have various other people in this. You have Martin Balsam. You have what's left of John Carradine. I think John Carradine came out of the womb at 80 years old. My God, he looked horrendous in this. And I don't think it was the makeup. Bless John Carradine. Night train to Mundo Fine. Poor John Carradine. I'm sure he was a nice guy, but good Lord. But let's talk about the rest of the people that were in this. Jose Ferrer, or Ferrer. Ava Gardner was in this. You will recognize the voice alone. You have Arthur Kennedy. Burgess Meredith. Time enough at last. Well, he had time to kind of act his ass off in this. There was a black and white cat that, good Lord, that cat did not want to be held or used at all in this film. Sylvia Miles, who apparently was 8 feet tall. Deborah Ruffin. You have Ellen Wallach, Eli Wallach, rather. You have Christopher Walken. You have Jeff Goldblum, Jerry Orbach. Yes, Jerry Orbach from Law and Order. Beverly D'Angelo, who I always think of Beverly D'Angelo as kind of the kindly, motherly figure in the Christmas Vacation movie and also in Violent Night. Yes, she was in that. Goodness me, she was a looker in this. You also have Jeff Goldblum, as I said, Tom Berenger, and you have William Hickey, and a lot of people, a lot of recognizable faces. Some that were on The Ascent. It's weird to see what Jeff Goldblum was in before he really stepped into big fame with The Fly. So, yes, a model basically gets consumed by a house of evil. That's about it. It's very obvious where it's going, and that's really all I'm going to say about that. It's on Netflix if you want to check it out, but there are going to be spoilers. Spoilers throughout this whole goddamn thing, so jump off at this point if you don't want to know anything else about it. If you've seen it, please let me know. So yeah, we're in North Italy, I assume. The caption said they were speaking Italian. Glad you clarified that, so they weren't speaking Moroccan. The Conclave holds like 9 people. By the way, check out the movie Conclave. It's really fucking terrific. They say let no evil thing approach or enter in. Yeah, so there you go. All my exes actually said that about me. I think that says a lot about me. Nevertheless, the dialogue is... I think the dialogue, honestly, was done post-production because there were so many parts where it sounded dubbed in. And for a $3.7 million budget, whoo boy. Yeah, let's just do weird shit, really, is what they came down to. Yeah, they saw the success of Rosemary's Baby and of The Exorcist came out years before. But my God, Christina was gorgeous. I mean, good grief. Good grief. Anyway, $600 for a New York apartment was apparently expensive in 1977. Based on that math, it would actually be, the inflation alone would be insane. And, yeah, Allison was in a hospital 2 months before. She tried to take her own life. That's basically the theme of the whole thing. That's never the answer, by the way. That's not the blame game. That's never the answer. Help is out there. There are some beauties in this movie, especially the aforementioned Beverly D'Angelo, where, yeah, there was a scene where I'm like, okay, that was a choice. The music was certainly not great. The editing was all over the goddamn map. We have Allison handing some cufflinks to Michael because it's cufflink season. Haha, I don't even know what that means. Ava Gardner at least has a little bit of fun as a realtor, so to speak. She refers to a father, Halloran, who's played by John Carradine, or the corpse of John Carradine. I mean, you really can't tell the difference. And he is essentially just, standing there in his apartment, staying at the window. He's blind. He can't do anything. It turns out he's also the guardian to stop the gates of hell from opening. Oh, yes, and a whole bunch of other people show up, like Burgess Meredith's Charles, who has an angry cat. That's not a euphemism. Michael basically wants to drive her mad, essentially. I mean, they try to make it like Michael's actually a pretty good guy, but no, I really don't think so. Even though the editing is really bad and inconsistencies are all over the goddamn map. Sylvia is apparently, didn't look a day over 200 here. That's mean. She was also about 8 feet tall, as I said. They had Beverly D'Angelo feeling and caressing herself for whatever reason. I don't really know how to feel about that. It was strange. Yeah, Christina's voice in particular sounded like dubbed in at the end. So, Charles is very forward, throws a surprise party for his cat, and then has Ava Gardner show up to look over these rooms. Nobody else has lived in the apartment for 3 years but her and the father. Gee, I wonder why that is. And, yeah, she loses it more and more. Christina basically does Rosemary's Baby style. The cat, by the way, was named Jezebel. Let's just get more on the goddamn nose here, why don't we? Yeah, there's a point also where she had, when she tried to take her own life when she was younger or something. I don't really necessarily know. She saw her dad with a couple in a threesome, and I don't really understand why in the world we needed to see that, but whatever, it's fine. Michael also sends a detective after her, basically to keep an eye on Allison because he's worried about her because she's part of his plot. And she ends up cutting up her dad's corpse. Actually, she ended up cutting up Brenner, and somehow his body ended up over near the East River, or wherever, I assume. Michael's basically a crooked lawyer. This cop knows that. His previous wife had been driven to take her own life. And, yeah, she goes to church. She confesses to one of the pastor, cardinals, whatever that we saw a little bit earlier, that had the ring of Christ on his hand. And, yeah, there you go. It turns out, actually, that he was just part of this whole deal. I don't know. I mean, Michael's honestly, like, just so evil. This thing gets so goddamn messy. It's simplistic yet incomprehensible at the same time. And Halloran is a recluse. Michael goes to the church to get more answers. And then he ends up getting a friend to help him break in and look at these files where it turns out people die or they try to take their own life and then they become a priest, a nun, or whatever. It's happened through history. And part of the reason is because that apartment is built on an entrance to hell. Apparently. I guess that's one of the 7 entrances to hell there in New York. Actually, even what I've heard about New York, kind of fitting. So they throw a whole bunch of body horror effects at the end, where people have mutated faces and all this stuff and all this crazy shit's going on. Cynthia's losing it. She passes out at one point on some guy's lap. I wish that was me. Moving on. And she's freaking out. She's about to take her own life because Burgess Meredith is trying to... He still hasn't recovered from time enough at last, so he's trying to frustrate everybody. And then he decides to say, okay, you take your own life, you do this. We'll find... You'll be able to, be this guard. We'll make sure that we control you or something. But then the one other priest and John Carradine, the corpse of John Carradine, show up and just do what they do and give her the cross, and then she becomes the Sentinel. Yeah. And the building got destroyed, but yet somehow... I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry, the Sentinel isn't very good. It's messy. It feels like it was edited down from something that was maybe an hour and 55 minutes. It was more coherent. Maybe there's a director's cut out there. I doubt it, and I doubt I'd want to sit through it, because while it hooked me initially, it then unhooked me and decoupled, and basically this thing was just a mess. Christina looked great, absolutely incredible, and there were some beauties in there, and there was certainly some interesting choices for nudity and everything else. But that being said, it was not great. It was a mess. It wasn't dull, I'll give it that, but it wasn't very good. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.